The U.S. is about to deploy F-35 stealth fighters near the coast of Venezuela. That is, if you thought the jets only appeared in Hollywood movies, you were wrong, because this is as real as money in your wallet, if your wallet is lucky enough to have any money. Today, the History and War channel will take you on a thorough, accurate, and as usual, deep and hilarious journey into the military move that is shaking up the Caribbean region. In-depth analysis, causes, developments, strategy, and legal backstage. 1. Strategic causes and U.S. motives. According to the Trump administration, the deployment of a squadron of 10 F-35 stealth fighters to Puerto Rico to participate in the campaign to suppress drug gangs in the Caribbean. This is not just a simple military response. The Stimson Center, USA, assessed that it is more of a strategic signal than a real combat effectiveness. Law professor Mark Nevitt, Emory University, former Navy legal advisor, warned that the U.S. classification of drug gangs as terrorists could open a forever war. 2. Military developments and militarization of information. According to Reuters, 10 F-35 fighters will be deployed at an airbase in Puerto Rico and coordinate with the U.S. naval fleet in the Caribbean. It is unclear whether it belongs to the Air Force, Navy, or Marine Corps. Al Jazeera notes that this action is to strengthen the military campaign against drug trafficking groups in the Caribbean while putting pressure on the Venezuelan government. Reuters also said that the U.S. currently has a strong naval presence of more than 4,500 Marines and sailors in the region, along with many warships. In addition, President Trump did not rule out the possibility of intercepting, shooting down, Venezuelan military aircraft if they are considered a threat to the U.S. In addition, information from military.com affirms that the use of F-35 is a strong message of capability, although in terms of combat effectiveness, it may not be reasonable. Specific illustration: defense map scenario. Imagine a map of the Caribbean region. Location of Puerto Rico and Venezuela. Puerto Rico is a U.S. overseas territory about 1,600 kilometers from the state of Florida and more than 1,800 kilometers from the Venezuelan border. You can draw a map with a red arrow from the U.S. via Puerto Rico approaching the Venezuelan waters, symbolizing the F-35 approaching. Military deployment area. F-35 symbol around Puerto Rico. The Caribbean Sea is boldly drawn where the U.S. fleet is present, with the USS Iwo Jima, San Antonio, Fort Lauderdale. A symbol of a VZ F-16 flying close to the USS Jason Dunham, a provocative flyover that the Pentagon calls provocative. A small speech bubble from Trump. If they create a risk, they will be shot down. On the outside of the map is a group of experts, Stimson, Emory, arguing humorously. One expert says it's sending a message, not combat effectiveness. Another warns of the risk of endless war, illustrating the post-debate. Potential outcomes and multi-dimensional implications. 1. Strategic consequences. Increased pressure on Venezuela. The presence of F-35s with the U.S. fleet is a clear sign of high determination, while creating a siege mentality, even though there has not been a moment of actual collision. Legal and domestic U.S. The use of military without approval from Congress has been criticized. Representative Ilhan Omar called the action unlawful and not authorized by Congress, as noted by Reuters. The consequences of endless war. When the U.S. military considers drug cartels a terrorist target, experts worry about launching a long-term, indefinite campaign not only in the Caribbean but in many other places. 2. International and spiritual implications. Increased regional tensions. Venezuela reacts strongly, calls for dialogue, and mobilizes militias and is on high alert. Signals to stakeholders. With neighboring countries such as Colombia, Caribbean, U.S. demonstrate desire to control drug flows and regional influence. End. Summary and call to action in a subtle journalistic tone. Overview. Opening. The U.S. is about to deploy 10 F-35 stealth fighters to Puerto Rico, close to Venezuela, in a campaign against drug cartels. Analysis: the move is both a strategic statement and raises questions about its military effectiveness and legality. At the same time, the U.S. has a significant naval force in the Caribbean, while Venezuela responded with civilized actions, like flying over ships. Meaning, geopolitical pressure, internal U.S. debates about executive power, and the possibility of launching a never-ending campaign. End and call to action. If you've read this far and are still sober, preferably sober, please click like to reinforce the spirit of keep following these thrilling military stories. Share if you want your friends to understand that history and war are not only bombs and bullets, but also calculated moves. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to the History and War channel, where each video is an adventure through time.